What if you could travel back to another place and time of your existence and see all that you did, all that you learned or experienced? What if you could visit these distant past experiences to gain insight and gather information that you could bring back with you and use in your current life? Well, to my understanding, this is what experiencing a past life regression is all about. A facilitator guides you on a journey of the mind to your alleged past lives to discover the root causes of behavior patterns, fears, strengths, etc., so that you can either harness those positive experiences to enhance your life today or reduce the energy surrounding the not so positive experiences to help you manage your current life in healthier ways. As I share in today's episode, I've always been skeptical of past life regression, and you'll hear my thoughts on that. But what I learned today by being a volunteer for a student at my university was life-changing. I'm still not convinced that I actually visited a past life, and I'm not completely convinced that I was truly hypnotized. But what I can and do share with you is what I learned from the experience and how important that is. More important in my mind than whether or not the scenes were real. Please excuse my completely different tone of voice and cadence of speech as I was reeling from the experience and was apparently still in a somewhat altered state of consciousness, according to the facilitator. I sound completely different and I'm speaking much slower than usual. This certainly isn't my best recording, but that isn't the point. Again, it was an interesting experience and I felt it might be valuable to share, if only to document my thoughts and feelings on the experience. Thank you again for joining me on All Is Not Lost, and I hope you find this experience somewhat interesting for your own life.
Spirit. Does it stay? Does it go?
The fact is, spirit does survive death. Our loved ones are all around us. Love survives. Spirit survives. All is not lost.
Welcome to the All Is Not Lost podcast.
I'm at a loss for words right now, in a good way. I've never before had a past life regression until today. And I never did it before, to be honest with you, because I didn't fully believe in it. I felt that whatever you see while you're on these journeys could be just a mixture of memories, thoughts, dreams, things you've seen on television or read in books, or tapping into the creative consciousness that we all have access to. I didn't believe that it was real because how can you verify the information? Now, I have read of cases where people remember things apparently that can be traced back in time, dates, times, places, people. Yet there's still some people who believe that's something different, not a past life, that it's ESP of some sort, or again, tapping into the collective consciousness, that you're retrieving information from a big database. You're not really remembering a life that you lived. As I'm learning in my parapsychology class, that I'm absolutely freaking loving every minute of, like, my mind is exploding with all that I'm learning. I'm just so excited. As I go through that, I'm seeing that really the only studies on reincarnation are done on children, young children, because less chance of error. And these children actually provide information that they couldn't possibly have experienced through life because their lives have been so short. I know I'm going to sound spacey and like I'm rambling because, well, they told me at the end, you're kind of still in a trance state for 24 to 48 hours after you have your past life regression. I know that I'm feeling different and a little spacey, and I'm going to sound that way. But what I took away from my experience today is whether or not the scenes that I visited during the regression, whether or not those were real, actual lives that I've experienced before, almost doesn't matter, because the lessons that I learned, the things that I felt were so vivid and real. I'm not as comfortable with visualizing and imagery. I did see a ton of amazing things, but ultimately, I think I do best with feelings. Same with my mediumship. I really, really get a lot of information from spirit through my emotions and my feelings. I feel like the past life regression was the same way, that the most information came through how I was feeling in each of the scenes. Whether or not I lived these past lives, or these were just images from, like I said, TV or books I've read or movies I've seen, or the collective consciousness, doesn't matter if I took a message or a lesson away from the experience, which I did. It was so powerful because in all of the scenes that she took me through in my life or past lives, all of the scenes she took me through, I felt some powerful feelings like I struggle with self-confidence. I know a lot of people do. And maybe you don't think the person in your life struggles with self-confidence because they seem like they have their act together and they're doing so much in the world, but you don't know what their internal struggles are. And so I don't know if it's apparent to others or not that I struggle with self-confidence, but I do. And I have throughout my life. And I've done a lot of great things. I've shared a lot of wonderful things, and I have a lot to be proud of, a lot of accomplishments. And I don't let my lack of self confidence keep me from moving forward. But I wonder what more I could do if I didn't have a lack of self confidence at times. So when we did the regression, it was so fascinating because in all of the scenes until the end, I was alone. At first, it was like a little hut in a village, kind of. It felt very Asian to me. I don't know what country I felt like I was a part of, but the point was I felt happy being alone. And it's strange because that is very parallel to my current life. I'm a person who likes to be alone. I fill up my tank, so to say, when I'm by myself. People overwhelm me, situations overwhelm me. I like to be a part of things when I choose, but then when it's too much for me, I like to go be by myself. So I felt that in this first scene. I also felt so connected to the earth and to nature. It was so crazy because I felt that I was having mind to mind communication with the animals, the birds especially. I felt very connected to God. And the message I was feeling during that was that I don't need anybody or anything else. And I don't say that in a negative way. Of course, I need my children and my husband and my friends and my family. But I think when it was attached to the self confidence, in that I took it to mean I don't need feedback from others. I need to know that my relationship with myself, with God, and especially being out in nature is really where I will get that feedback that I need, that confidence that I need to draw upon. And being by myself, nurturing myself, maybe in nature, is what I need to do. It was such a weird thing to experience, and it's even weirder to try to explain it. And even further, it's weird because I used to think this was crazy. Sure, I've read Dr. Brian Weiss's books. I've read the reviews. I know that people really, really believe this. I know there's studies done on it. I get it. But for me, I just like had a hang up, and the hang up was proof. But I've since changed that today, that the proof doesn't matter. The lesson, the healing, what you get out of it matters. So after she moved me from this first scene with nature where I'm communicating through my mind with the birds and with God, and I'm like replenishing my soul in this tropical setting, then I saw myself at a train station, old time, like in the 20s. And again, I was alone, but there were people everywhere. And there was such a feeling of anticipation and excitement and looking forward to where we were going. And I remember I was dressed in a long, form fitting dress with these tall black boots, like the kinds with all the little buttons that women used to wear. And I held a black hat in my hand. And I remember standing there by myself. It wasn't a problem that I was by myself. Again, I like to be by myself. So I felt excited to get on this train. And the person doing the regression, she was asking me where I was going, and I didn't know. But the sense I felt was I was going on an adventure. I was going somewhere special and I was excited to be there. She asked me what happened on the train, and it was interesting. I walked up the steps to my train car and I sat down in the first row next to the window. And I remember keeping my head down, and she asked me why. And I said, I don't want to make eye contact because I don't want anybody to sit by me or talk to me. I only want to talk when it's my choice. So I'm sure there's something to that. But again, for me, maybe I needed to just take in the adventure, the newness of being on this train. I had never been on a train before, was the feeling I got. And I wanted to embrace every bit, looking out the window, hearing the sounds of the train, feeling myself sitting upon the seat. I wanted to take it all in. I didn't want to be wrapped up in small talk with somebody who sat next to me. So that was fascinating. And then she took me to another scene that was supposed to be the destination of my train ride. And it felt like I was in a foreign country on a beach, and it was warm. And I felt this warmth and this safety and comfort. I'm sitting on the beach in the sand in my beautiful dress, but I have taken my boots off. And they're in the sand next to me on my left side. And I'm watching the ocean and I'm watching the seagulls circle above me. And I just have this overwhelming sense of peace and belonging. But what was funny is kind of opposite of belonging. The most important sensation I felt was anonymity. I loved that I was in a place that nobody knew me. I didn't apparently speak the language. Again, these things are strange. Not all of it makes sense, kind of like a dream. And I soaked up this warmth and this sunshine, and it just felt so beautiful. And I felt comforted. And that was like the best destination I could ever ask for. I didn't need or want anything. But then what was so weird is as I'm sitting on the beach, I'm seeing myself sit there in the sand. And it was almost as if I drew that, because then above my head, I could see kind of like my thought bubble, what the woman on the beach was thinking. I could see what was going on in her mind, which like was a double layer. I don't know. If you know about past life regressions and you want to comment, send me an email. I'm so curious to see if you have some thoughts on this. But there I am visualizing what I'm imagining. And in that bubble, which kind of then expanded into a new place to visit, it was like I was in, the best I could describe it was kind of a giant greenhouse, but I know it wasn't a greenhouse. And it was definitely, I think maybe around the 20s when there was like safaris and archaeological digs, and people wore those, I don't even know what those hats are called, the little rounded ones with the little brims all the way around, and you're wearing like khakis and hiking boots. It just, I could see us wearing those clothes, but I saw myself in this, I'm going to say greenhouse because I don't know what else to call it. And I'm surrounded by these big, lush, dark green, shiny leaved plants. They're everywhere. They're everywhere in this greenhouse. And there's a table in the middle. And on the table, I'm studying. I think I'm studying leaves. I'm studying these plants for whatever reason. And there are books and journals open all over the table. And they're old browned yellow pages, beautiful notebook pages that I just want to touch and feel. And I felt like I was maybe sketching in them. And as she asked me to experience more about what was going on in this room and how I felt and who was with me, it was interesting because I started to see myself as very tall. And I had the feeling that I had something valuable to say, that I was maybe a scientist who was sharing information. I was studying and I was teaching, and I had something to offer. It felt so good to feel important. I remember that I said the word humble. Like it didn't feel like I was overconfident or bragging. It was more that I was so excited within myself to be presenting this valuable information. And then she asked me who was in the room with me. And it was, I keep using words like weird and strange. I'm telling you, I cannot think of any other words right now. I'm surprised I'm even able to talk. when she asked me to look around the greenhouse and see if anybody was with me, I noticed 5 men dressed like I was in the same period clothing, the same khaki outfits, boots, hats. They all had mustaches and they all looked like academics out in the field. And I was teaching them. And she asked me more and more about that. And what I was feeling during the time is as I'm teaching these men about my findings, they're acknowledging and validating and they're interested in what I have to say and they're taking notes. And I'm obviously an authority figure or an expert in my field, is the way it was feeling. So, if you remember back to me beginning this talk, I was talking about self confidence. And here I was in this supposed past life, this scenario in my mind where I'm an authority figure and not just people are finding what I have to say valuable, but men. And I can't help but think that that must be significant in some way. And these were also learned people. And here they are learning from me. So there has to be something meaningful in that. She asked me, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think she asked me to like embody those feelings and how I was feeling at the time and picture how I would bring them into my life today. And I remember I started to feel sad. The feeling started to fade. And I felt like I couldn't bring that exact feeling back into my daily life. And so she had me go back into the greenhouse and explore a little more. And then she had me assign a color and a shape to my feelings. And it was like I didn't even have time to think because it just came at me. The deepest, darkest, most gorgeous emerald green, like the leaf of a shiny tropical plant, but a dark, dark green. And this swirling circle, just this pulsating, swirling, strong, vibrating circle. I saw this, and then she had me try to integrate that green circle into my body as a way to send healing and whatever else I needed. It was so strange. And after that, I don't remember exactly how we got here because it was intense. It was a lot, but I think after I kind of got sad, she brought me back into a room related to the greenhouse. And she had me in a room with those same men, and she had them sitting in chairs. Then she asked me if they had anything to say, if I had anything to say to them. And I remember saying, thank you. And I had tears in my eyes. I thanked them for making me feel important and valued. And I thanked them for being interested in what I had to say. And then she asked me if they had something to say back to me. And it was interesting because I didn't hear much at first. And then I heard them say, thank you to me. Like they appreciated my time and my energy and what I had to give them. And so it was a mutual, equal relationship and it felt so good. And then I wasn't even going to tell her this because I thought, is that my imagination? I don't know. But then it kind of like in my mediumship, when I'm wondering if it's really a spirit coming through, and then all of a sudden it's like so strong, I can't deny it. It was like that. All of a sudden, I just had to tell her that they handed me a book. The 5 men together, as if they were presenting a beautiful gift to me, handed me a book. She asked me to describe it, and it was so weird because I described it like parchment paper, butcher paper. I don't know, that kind of brownish paper. The whole book was wrapped in it. The pages were like that. It had nothing on it except when I opened the cover, it said, "You did it," with exclamation points. And they were smiling so big at me, like a proud father would smile at his daughter and hand her something. I could feel that they were proud of me. And then I started to cry and I felt so proud of myself. And I feel like when I described the book to her, I was telling her that it didn't matter what was in the book. It didn't matter what was on the cover of the book. That's regardless. The point was, I did something big. I did something I needed to do. And I kept staring at myself, standing there, holding this book to my heart with tears running down my face of feeling so proud of myself and so grateful to my colleagues for acknowledging my worth and sharing in my excitement of this book. It was just so powerful. And at that point, she asked me to assign a shape and a color to this feeling. And before I even had time to think, the this bright red, deep, dark red ball, just like a fireball, was swirling all around me, like from head to toe, spiraling around me. And it felt so vibrant, beautiful, and alive with energy. And when we were all done and we were kind of recapping, she said, "That sounds a lot like the root chakra to me." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're so right." The whole core of feeling safe. If you know anything about the root chakra, it's your grounding, those basic needs of life. Do you have food? Do you have shelter? Do you have love? Because without those basic needs, like the hierarchy of needs, if you don't have those needs met, all the other things cannot fall into place. And no matter how much you have those other things in your life, they won't mean anything. They can't integrate into your life if you don't have a stable base. And that is your root chakra. And oh my gosh, when she said that, I was just covered in goosebumps because it felt like a hit. It felt so true that I finally felt safe and secure, and like I had what I needed inside me, which is crazy because ever listen to any of my other episodes or you're someone who knows me, you know that I've kind of always felt separated and distant and weird, for lack of a better word. And I think it goes back to when I was a child, I never felt safe. I was scared all the time. And I have stuff about that I'm not going to share, but it just reminds me of being a child when I didn't feel safe and I lived in fear every day. I just was always on edge. I was apprehensive. And so to see this significant red ball and associate it with my root chakra was meaningful to me. So after this point, she led me through what would be my death in that lifetime. And this is going to sound nuts, I know. But the minute she said that to me and she told me to picture leading up to my death, I smiled. I had this beautiful, peaceful smile on my face because I felt so at peace. I was still in the time and near my greenhouse scene. I know the greenhouse does not give you the visual that I wish I could give you. I wish I could draw. I wish I could paint and show you what I saw, but it doesn't matter. I'm still in that time frame, but I have like a little cabin, let's say, very simple, rudimentary. There's just a little cabin there, and it opens to this jungle, and it's my own private space. And I was describing to her that I felt complete. I felt that I had lived a good life. I felt that I had given of myself. I felt fulfilled. And I felt that it was just time to lie down on my bed and take a deep breath and slip into the other world. And it was beautiful. It was so peaceful. There are no other words that could describe how peaceful I just slipped into the other world and felt so complete and at peace. So that's weird, but it was such a good feeling. It kind of gives me hope and comfort that I remember saying to her, "I don't feel afraid of my death now. I don't feel afraid at all." There was no pain, no fear. It was simply peaceful. Gosh, I think that's when she brought me back a little bit backwards into the safe place in nature that she started me out in. And when I've done other guided meditations and visuals before where I've been led on journeys, there always seems to be this nature scene that I'm brought back to that I love. It's my go to. It's so strange because I'm on this giant cliff on a path, and on the right side, the cliffs drop straight down into the ocean, kind of like in Cornwall. It just kind of looks like that to me on one side. But then on the left side, the other side of the path, it's a meadow. surrounded with beautiful tall pine trees and this meadow full of wildflowers. And right on the side of the path is my cabin. And what's interesting is the cabin never has a door. I don't know why. Someone once told me that's because I don't have good enough boundaries, but I don't know. It just felt like I was free and trusting. So she brings me back to my safe place, and that's where I choose to go. And then she brought me back to today. She asked me, what could I take from the experience? Oh my gosh, I forgot one of the most important parts. At one point, she said to envision my loved ones in spirit around me and to see if they had messages for me. And I immediately saw my grandmother that I spent almost my entire childhood with, that meant the world to me. Just truly, truly, my life would not be what it is without my grandmother and my grandfather. So I saw my grandma instantly, and I heard her tell me she loves me, and I felt her love so strongly. And then it was odd because I saw a child. I saw a little girl, and at first I'm like, is that a child I was supposed to have or that I lost? I couldn't really make out the relationship. And I'm going out on a limb here already today, and I sound crazy probably to some people, but I felt like that child was me when I was a child. And this child ran over to my grandmother, and my grandmother put her arm around the child. And the child was smiling. And the woman doing my regression, she said, "What do you want to say to the child?" And I said, "You're perfect just as you are." And then I started to cry. It was so weird. And then I felt truly that I was talking to myself as a child, but I felt sadness for that child. And that was kind of rough to go through. But ultimately, I was able to tell her that the little girl was smiling and like waving goodbye at me, like she was okay. And so she told me to go over and give the little girl a hug. And I did. And it felt so good and so magical. It was just crazy. Like I said, like I backed up. That was before she brought me back to my safe place and what I took from it. So, what I took from my experience today and what I'm trying to share with you is, like me, if you don't believe in past life regression, one, because we don't have proof, two, because it could be any memory stored in our subconscious, it could be anything planted there that, how do we know that that's real? But what I'd like to express today is, so what? What if you just got some really good meaning or healing or lessons from it? I think that's good enough. I mean, that's going to be good enough for me. When Nicole asked me at the end, what can you take away from this? I said, a couple of things I felt was, I'm absolutely supposed to write a book. I've been being told that. I felt it. I don't know how to start. I need to manifest a mentor. I have no idea where to go with this. I don't even know what to write about. I have ideas, but apparently I'm supposed to write a book. And apparently there are some people out there that are going to listen and that it's going to make a difference in their lives. Not everybody, but apparently, if we think about my visualizations of the five men standing there that were very appreciative of what I had to offer, there must be something I'm supposed to say to somebody that wants to hear it. That was one thing I took away. Another thing I took away from it was, I have this image of me standing there in exactly the outfit. Again, I wish I could draw, holding this book to my heart, feeling so much pride in my accomplishments, so proud of myself. I joked and I said, I need like a safari Barbie doll holding a book to put in my office to stare at all day, because that's kind of the image of what I saw, was just this woman holding this book, feeling so proud and accomplished. And I think that is going to give me strength and motivation to do things that might be a little uncomfortable and new, but good is going to come out of it. And then lastly, a lesson that I took from it is, and I think this is for everybody. I was talking with a friend yesterday. I had coffee with a friend for a few hours. We talk about everything, our lives, our businesses, our families, all of that, our ups and our downs. And what I took from that, and what I wish I could share with my friend, and she's probably going to listen to this, is We don't need anyone's approval. We only need our approval. We only need to think about, are we doing our best work? Are we putting our best self forward? Are we being the best version of ourselves to our friends, our family, our children, our coworkers, whatever it is? Are we being the best possible person we can be while being authentic? We don't need to be fake. We don't need to pretend. We don't need to be try to be something else for anyone else because that's not really true. And when I was done with this regression, that really stood out to me that whether it's my childhood or not, where I didn't feel worthy or important or whatever, whatever caused it, I don't know. Let's not get into that. But it's how I felt. So my whole life, was seeking attention from people, as a kid, whether I got in trouble or dated the wrong guys or whatever it was. We do things because we're unhappy inside or we're seeking attention. But what I learn now truly through the experience, not through just somebody saying, oh, you have to love yourself. Oh, you have to, whatever, is that I don't need approval. If nobody ever listened to this podcast, nobody ever read the book I'm hopefully going to write, nobody ever acknowledges me, it doesn't matter. Did I work hard? Did I do my best? Did I give of myself, of my real true self? That's what matters. And the other day, I put out an episode with a lot of personal stories. And I thought to myself, and I actually asked somebody, is it okay to share so much about myself? There's people out there that don't share anything about themselves and they just give great content and put it all out there and still they're a mystery to you. And then there's other people that overshare and it's a turnoff. Well, the reason I am compelled to share with you all is I hope that you feel my sincerity, my realness, the real me. If you met me in person, I'm exactly the same person you're hearing through your headphones right now or whatever in your car. I don't change to be something different for other people. I'm who I am and I can't hide that. And so by telling you stories about my life, I'm hoping that I'll give you a sense of relatedness, that you feel you can relate. And I think that that brings connection to us all when we find people we can relate to, people that are real, people that offer us something that makes us feel like we're not alone or different or too weird. like like I feel most of the time. But I'm finding my tribe of weirdos and it feels good. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you today while it was fresh in my mind because I have never ever in my life experienced something like this. And let me be clear, I was a volunteer today for students. Part of where I'm going to school for my parapsychology classes, they have some other courses there, of course. And one of them is transpersonal hypnosis. And so some of us were asked to volunteer for some of the students to do past life regressions. And so I gladly signed up because I've never had it done. I didn't know what it would be like, and I wanted to help out. Well, it was life changing. It was absolutely life changing in that I'm going to write in my journal, sketch something, I don't know, start a book. I'm going to do something with what I experienced today because the feelings were so real and the messages were so clear. So, anyway, am I telling you to run out and pay for a past life regression? Absolutely not. But if it's something you're into, great. Maybe you'll learn a great lesson. Really, there's no motive here. I just wanted to share my experience because, well, I kind of just needed to put it somewhere. It was so impactful. I needed to put it somewhere. And I guess that way I can have it chronicled for myself as well if I ever want to revisit it. Anyway, that was my experience today being a volunteer for a past life regression. And I hope through sharing my story with you that maybe you found a piece of valuable information or it sparked some new interest for you, or even just reminded you to be yourself, be authentic, and seek your own approval. You don't need to seek other people's approval. And maybe we all really are destined to do great things, and we just need to be reminded of that. And let's go out and do something awesome today. This week's episode of All Is Not Lost was again a bit different, but I just couldn't go through that unbelievable experience without sharing it with someone. And who better than you? Whether you feel like running out and booking a past life regression, or you were able to glean a tidbit of useful information from mine, I'm happy you were here to share this with me. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so appreciative. I know you have a choice of how you spend your time, and it's not lost on me that you choose to spend your time here. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to subscribe and to share it with a friend. If you'd like more information about me, or to book a reading or private mentoring session, please visit allisnotlostpodcast.com and click Booking and Inquiries. If you have an idea for a show topic or you just want to connect, please reach out on social media or via email at allisnotlostpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again so much, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.